In a quiet American town tucked between wide fields and old brick streets, the courthouse lobby was unusually crowded that morning. People sat shoulder to shoulder, whispering in low voices, but their attention kept drifting to the small girl sitting at the front. She was only 12, her legs barely reaching the edge of the seat, her hands trembling so much they rustled the papers in her lap. Today she was supposed to face the man who had hurt her. Today she was expected to speak the truth out loud, even though the words felt heavier than she could carry. Inside the courtroom, the air was tight with silence. The girl's mother clutched her hand, trying to offer strength she didn't feel she had. The prosecutor knelt beside the girl, speaking softly, promising she wouldn't be alone. But the girl's eyes remained fixed on the door, her breathing uneven, her voice trapped somewhere deep. Every sound, footsteps, rustling jackets, shifting chairs, made her flinch. She feared that when the moment came, nothing would come out of her mouth, and she would fail herself all over again. Then, from outside, something unexpected rippled through the walls. A low vibration, steady and growing, rolled across the floor like distant thunder. People exchanged confused looks, unsure whether it was construction, a storm, or something else. The judge paused mid-sentence, glancing toward the windows. Even the girl felt the tremor beneath her shoes. The sound deepened, multiplied, engines, dozens of them. Within seconds, the entire courthouse could hear it clearly. Motorcycles approaching, powerful and deliberate, as if an army had arrived. When the courthouse doors opened, the crowd turned as one. 47 bikers, men and women dressed in rugged leather jackets adorned with patches, stepped inside. Their faces were serious, not wild or reckless, but calm with purpose. These weren't outlaws. They were part of a motorcycle charity group known for supporting children who had endured trauma. Many were former soldiers, firefighters, and rescuers. They didn't speak or shout. They simply walked in formation, their heavy boots echoing across the marble floor as they made their way to the courtroom. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted the moment the bikers entered. One by one, they filled the seats behind the girl, creating a wall of strength and solidarity she had never known. The girl turned, perhaps out of fear at first, but her eyes widened when she saw them, 47 strong, sitting tall, their jackets carrying symbols of courage and protection. One biker gave her a small nod, another placed a hand over his heart. And just like that, the trembling in her hands began to slow. Something inside the girl rose, something she thought she had lost forever. She took a shaky breath, then another. When the prosecutor asked her to speak, she lifted her chin, steady and determined. Her voice, once a whisper, grew clearer as she told her story, every detail she had held in, every truth she had been terrified to face alone. She didn't break down. She didn't back away. The presence of those bikers behind her felt like a shield, reminding her she mattered. She deep inside the Arizona woodlands, where tall pines whispered with every breath of wind, rancher Ethan Walker was inspecting the edges of his property. The forest was quiet that morning, too quiet, until he noticed a faint rustle near the tree line. Thinking it might be an injured animal, he stepped closer. Instead, he found a tiny Apache boy crouched behind a fallen log. The child's clothes were dusty, his cheeks sunken, and his eyes wide with fear. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. Ethan knelt slowly, careful not to frighten him further. When Ethan spoke gently, the boy didn't answer. He only stared. With hollow eyes, unsure whether to trust this stranger. Ethan offered his hand and waited. After a long pause, the child took it, weakly, almost collapsing into Ethan's arms. Ethan carried him back to the cabin, feeling how light he was, how cold his small fingers felt. Inside, he heated soup, wrapped him in blankets, and brought him water. The boy ate in tiny bites, watching Ethan the whole time, as if expecting to be taken away again at any moment. The next 4 days passed quietly. The child barely spoke a word, only a soft whisper in a language Ethan didn't fully understand. At night, the boy would cling to Ethan's shirt and refuse to let go until he fell asleep. Ethan kept a fire burning, kept meals warm, and kept the boy close, knowing something terrible must have happened for a child to be wandering alone in the wild. Ethan didn't call authorities yet. Something in the boy's eyes told him the situation was delicate, too delicate to mishandle. On the fourth morning, sunlight spilled across the cabin floor as Ethan was preparing breakfast. The boy sat by the window, holding a wooden carving Ethan had given him. Suddenly, a heavy knock echoed through the cabin door. It wasn't a polite tap. It was firm, deliberate, almost urgent. Ethan felt the boy flinch behind him. Wiping his hands on a cloth, he walked toward the door with cautious steps, unsure whether to expect trouble, news, or something in between. When he opened it, his breath caught. 3 Apache women stood on the porch, their traditional clothing beautifully crafted with beads and woven patterns. Their faces carried a mixture of fear, relief, and exhaustion. The youngest clutched her shawl close, her eyes searching the cabin behind Ethan. The middle woman's gaze was stern but trembling. But it was the eldest who stepped forward, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. Ethan didn't speak, he simply stepped aside so they could see inside the cabin. The boy peeked from behind the wooden post, and the moment the eldest woman saw him, her shoulders fell with overwhelming relief. Tears rose in her eyes, but she held them back with dignity. She lifted her hand slowly, as if greeting a spirit instead of a child. "We were told our child is safe here," she said softly. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He realized then that this wasn't just a missing child. This was someone deeply loved, deeply searched for, and deeply feared lost forever. Ethan invited them inside, watching as the boy ran into the women's arms. All 3 embraced him tightly, whispering words Ethan didn't understand but felt in his chest like a warm pulse. After a long moment, they turned to Ethan with gratitude that needed no translation. The eldest woman explained that the boy had gone missing days earlier during a sudden storm. He had been separated from their group, and search parties had been looking nonstop. Someone from town had told them a rancher might have taken in a child he found alone. As the story unfolded, Ethan realized how close the child had been to losing everything, and how close he himself had been to never understanding the magnitude of what he had done. The women thanked him again and again, their voices trembling, their hands gripping his as if he had saved one of their own blood. When they finally prepared to leave with the boy, Ethan felt a tug in his heart. The child turned back, stepped forward, and wrapped his arms around Ethan in a final, silent hug. That moment told Ethan everything. What happened over the next few hours would change his understanding of community, trust, and the invisible threads that tie people together in ways they never expect.